this is part 2 of the second part of the skeletal system lectures, and this is where we left off. The olecranon is the body region name for the elbow region. So it's also the name for the point of the elbow on the ulna. And the trochlear notch is the area of the ulna that articulates with the trochlea of the humerus. And the radial tuberosity articulates with the radius, and the shaft ends distally with a short styloid process. Now, if I'm not underlining these, I'm probably you don't have any questions about them in your quiz questions or your homework. And here's this is a picture of the radius in the ulna. Primarily, I would say to make sure that you know that the ulna articulates with the humerus at the trochlea, and the radius articulates with the humerus at the capitulum. And that's probably those are probably the main ones that you would be asked about. Okay. The radius and the ulna, continuing on, there's some markings on the radius that I know that you will not need to be familiar with. So we are going to go over the carpal bones, however. There are 8 carpal bones, and in fact, I am going to give you a sentence, a mnemonic device to help you remember. That's not what I meant to do. Okay, so what I want to do is insert a slide. And then here we go. All right. So there is a sentence that can help you remember the bones of the wrist. And you can go online. You can Google mnemonic devices to help you remember anatomical structures, like groups of bones or muscles or anything, nerves, anything like that. There are other sentences besides this one, but this is one that I don't know, it's the easiest for me to remember of all of the different sentences that I've ever read. So it's the one I'm going to give you. And the sentence is, some lovers try positions that they can't handle. And so that is the sentence, and the first letter of each word in the sentence goes with a bone. But the only problem is there are 3 bones that start with a T. So it's going to be the scaphoid, and so there's 2 rows of 4 bones each. So it's the scaphoid, the lunate, and one thing about the word tri is it does go with the bone triquetrum. And then the 4th bone in that row is called the pisiform. So let me go back and show you. So here, what you see is here's the scaphoid, the lunate, the triquetrum, sorry, I don't know if you guys are having the same problem, but okay. It's hard to see all the bones, but it's a scaphoid, it's lunate, and then it is triquetrum here, and then the pisiform bone is not really very visible, but it's located there. And then the rest of the sentence, that was the some lovers try positions. The rest of the sentence would go back the other direction from the pinky to the thumb. So it would go trapezium. No, I'm sorry, the other direction from the thumb to the pinky. So same direction, starting at the thumb side, the trapezium, the trapezoid, the capitate, and the hamate. So trapezium, trapezoid. So those are going to be the two hardest to remember, is which ones go with that and they. And capitate and hamate. So these are the names of the carpal bones or the wrist bones and a mnemonic device to help you remember them. And then they're listed here as well on this page. Now we're going to move on and talk about the bones of the hands and the fingers. The bones of the hand that form the palm are called the metacarpal bones. There are 5 of them. The metacarpals articulate with the phalanges or finger bones. There are 14 total phalangeal bones on each hand, and each finger has a proximal portion, proximal phalanx is how you say it. So you, I don't know if it's in the notes. Nope. Okay. So you would actually say, this is the correct terminology. You would say the proximal phalanx. That's the singular word. The middle phalanx and the distal phalanx. So the distal or the farthest point away, the tips of your fingers would be the distal phalanx, and the proximal would be the part that articulates with your hand bones. So each finger, there's a proximal, middle, and distal bone. And then in the thumb, there's a proximal and a distal, and that's it. And the thumb is also called the pollex. They're all classified as long bones, even though they are small, okay? So if we go back to the hand, starting with the thumb is the first phalanx, and we just call it the thumb, and then we have the second, third, fourth, and fifth phalanges, and each one has, starting here, this would be the proximal phalanx of the second digit, and this would be the middle, and I'm sorry, oh my gosh, where the numbers are, those are the metacarpal bones. I apologize. I could re-record this, but I'm not going to. I hope you will forgive my mistake, but the hand bones are, the metacarpal bones are the ones where the numbers are. Then you have the proximal, the middle, and the distal bones of the ones that I just checked off are on the second phalanx or the second digit, and it's the same way all the way to the pinky. The thumb just has a proximal and distal bone here and here. Okay. Now we're going on to the pelvic girdle, which forms your hips. The pelvic girdle articulates with the femur, which is the thigh bone. And it says thigh bones because, of course, you have 2 legs, so you have 2 femurs. The pelvic girdle is more massive. It's heavier than the pectoral girdle. So that also means it's stronger. It is attached firmly to the axial skeleton. It consists of 2 irregularly shaped large hip bones or coxal bones, and each one is a fusion of 3 bones. So each coxal bone is a fusion of, so there's 2 coxal bones, which each contain an ilium, ischium, and pubis. These 3 bones fuse by the age of 17. The joint, the hip joint, is formed by the um, femur and the acetabulum, which is a structure on the ilium, and the sacrum and the iliac bone also form the sacroiliac joint. Okay, let's see if we have some pictures here. All right, so this is one coxal bone, and it's the right coxal bone. So we're looking at the right coxal bone, not the left. And what, because remember when we look at the anterior view, well, this is the lateral view actually, but we're looking at like the person is lying down and we're looking at them face on. So the largest of the hip bones is the ilium, and then this is the ischium, and this is the pubis. And there is a structure on the ischium called the ischial tuberosity. I want you to be familiar with that, and I want you to be familiar with the pubic symphysis. So the ischial tuberosity is here, and these are your sitting bones. These are the bones that you actually sit on. When you're sitting down, this is what you're putting your weight on. And the pubic symphysis is right here. Now we're going to talk about the differences between male and female pelvic girdles or pelvises. The hip bones, the sacrum, and the coccyx form the pelvis, and a network of ligaments, which remember ligaments connect bone to bone. Ligaments stabilize the pelvis. There are differences in the male versus the female pelvis, primarily due to the fact that women have to be adapted for childbearing. So this one is the female pelvis, and there's two things that you look for. You look for a wider distance between the it just says a larger pelvic outlet, but a wider distance between the coxal bones, and then you also have a much wider angle, larger than 90 degrees. I think it says here 100-degree angle between the angle at the two pubic bones. And you can see definitely the male has a smaller angle between the two pubic bones, and it has a smaller pelvic outlet or less distance. Men have skinny hips. Even the bones, the bones are skinny. And there is also something, it's called the sacral promontory, that's not in the notes. That there's one other difference between the male and the female, but I don't know if that'll be on the quiz or not. But if you notice a question on the quiz about the sacral promontory, that's the third way that you can tell the difference between the male and female bones. Okay. The lower limb bones, the thigh bone is called the femur, and we do call the upper leg the thigh. We don't call it the upper leg. The kneecap is the patella, and then the leg, the portion of the lower limb that we refer to as the leg, is actually the lower leg, and it contains the larger, more massive tibia, your shin bone, and the fibula, which is articulates, and it's on the lateral side of the tibia. The tibia would be medial to the fibula. And then you have the tarsals, which are the ankle bones, the metatarsals, and the phalanges, kind of like with the hands. With the femur, there are some structures that I want you to be familiar with. I do want you to know the head of the femur and the neck is much longer. There's a very short neck on the humerus, but the femur has the long neck, and then the greater trochanter, the lesser trochanter, and the lateral and medial